to St. Matthew, the 5th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything, but is thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under a bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass from the law until it is all accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. Jacob, do we have children this morning? No. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we thank you, gracious God, for this day of worship. We thank you that you tell us something that we already are and not something that we need to become. Lord God, let us hear your call this day to respond to that pronouncement that we are the salt of the earth and we are the light of the world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The question I want to ask you this morning is, who are you? Now, I don't know how you answer that question, but how do you answer that question when someone asks you, who are you? The most common answer that you probably give is your name. You might also give a little bit of your family history and some connections that you might share to help identify who you are. Often, we'll tell something to others about our work, the things that we do, or how we spend our time. I cannot, however, think of a single time when I ever answered that question, who are you? And I respond, oh, I'm the salt of the earth, or I'm the light of the world. How about you? Have you ever answered that way to somebody who asks who you are? Or has anyone ever answered you that way? Well, maybe, but I'm guessing probably not. And why not? Even if we've never said it aloud, do you ever think about yourselves in that way? Do we know that even about ourselves? Jesus knows that about us, and he thinks that about us. Jesus even says that about us, and it's right there in today's gospel that we read just a few minutes ago. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Now, don't think this is about somebody else other than you. Jesus is not talking about particular individuals. He's talking to the crowds that have followed him from Galilee, the 10 cities known as Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and beyond the Jordan. And that means they've come from everywhere, the people. They've come to see this one that they've heard so much about. They've come to listen and to learn, to be healed, and to have their lives put back together again. They've come in search of meaning and direction and purpose. And you and I stand among that crowd. We're one of them. We've come today to St. Mark's to see this one that we have heard about. We've come to listen and to learn. We've come to be healed. We have come to have our lives put back together again. We've come in search of meaning and direction and purpose. And Jesus' words are as true and applicable to us today as they were over 2,000 years ago. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. But Jesus doesn't stop there. There are profound implications to being salt and light. It means that we are to flavor the world. We are to season and transform human activity in such a way that it reveals God to the entire world. It means we are to help people better see God in their own lives. It means we are to enlighten the dark places of the world. You and I are the means by which God flavors and illuminates life and the world around us. If last week at the Feast of the Presentation we heard that Christ was presented to us, Christ's gospel today shows us that we are now presenting Christ to others. We are God givers, God sharers, not just receivers. We can say our prayers, we can sing our praises, but if they do not govern and guide our actions in the world, they are only self-serving and they fall deaf to God's ears. And perhaps we should spend less time speaking the truth about God and more time doing the truth of God. And what is that truth? How do we do that truth? Christ has given us the salt and the light of his divinity, not just for ourselves, but for others, that they might see God, that they might eat with flavor in the world and see better. The salt of divinity that was poured into our hands, we are to sprinkle into the world. The light of divinity that fills our hearts and minds is to shine on and brighten all of life. To be salt and to be light is to respond to God's call to make our inner life congruent with our outer life. So, to be salt and to be light, what does that look like? What does that mean for us, sitting in our pews this morning at St. Mark's? It's really pretty practical and tangible when you come to think about it. It's something that can be tasted and seen. It makes a difference in the world and in other people's lives. It is looking into another person's eyes, speaking a kind word, and acknowledging him or her as having been created in the image and the likeness of God. Try that with someone that you've labeled as a welfare mother, or a panhandler, or a gang member. It is generosity with your compassion, your time, and your money to care for and make a difference in the lives of the poor, the hungry, the homeless. It is starting a conversation and rebuilding a relationship when what you mostly feel is indifference, or pain, or anger towards a person. It is praying that God will bless with all the good gifts that you want for yourself, for those who you love, for those who have hurt you, and for those who are different from you, and those with whom you might even disagree, politically or otherwise. The prophet Isaiah speaks of losing the bonds of injustice and letting the oppressed go free. So maybe salt and light look like politics that are not dependent on control or power, that establish a society, in other words, with equality and diversity, that recognize the dignity of every human being. Now, would you support that kind of legislation? Would you vote for that kind of candidate? Maybe even campaign as that candidate. It is the faithfulness and commitment to others shown by listening, by being available and spending time. It would mean slowing down and rearranging your schedule and valuing presence over efficiency and productivity. It is choosing a life of self-giving rather than taking and acquiring, vulnerability rather than defensiveness, and intimacy rather than isolation. It means you might and probably will get hurt. It is loving God, your neighbor. Yes, loving your enemy. And of course, loving yourself. It means choice overcomes whatever feelings you may have towards another. And so I ask, where is the salt and the light in your life? What does it look like? How does it show up? There are probably so many expressions and manifestations of salt and light as there are people. Ultimately, though, they always look like the life of Jesus Christ. To live as salt of the earth and light of the world is to know our deepest, truest, and most authentic self. It is the life we long for and the life that God desires for us to have. It is both who we are and how we are to be. And that's why Jesus is so adamant that we do not lose our saltiness and that we do not hide our light. To lose our saltiness and hide our light would be to lose and hide our own life. To do so in some way would be to deny Christ. Salt that has no flavor and light that is hidden is worthless. They're not really themselves. They are neither true nor authentic. They are not real. And that's neither what we want nor what God intends for us. No one says, when you sit down to eat your dinner, pass the salt, please, hoping that the flavor of the food will be the same. No one walks into the room, flips on the light switch, and hopes that the light won't come on. And yet we've all known times like that. Times when our insides and our outsides do not line up. When something is amiss and we're just not ourselves. We're not the people that God meant us to be. If we are the salt and if we are the light, then we ought to be tasted and seen by the world. If our relationships are bland and flavorless, if our world is dark and filled with shadows, maybe we've not been faithful to or trusted of our own saltiness and light that God has given us. Maybe we've forgotten who we are. Maybe we never knew. Regardless of where we are in life or on our faith journey, I think we are all looking for the salt and light within us and how we can best be that for others. This past week, I had 5 conversations about that very question with different individuals. Not one person said to me the words salt or light. Not one of those children that I worked with in school said the word salt or light. But that's what they were talking about. How to be real, how to be authentic, how to make a difference. They were all searching and asking good questions, reflecting on their lives, and working to live faithfully with God and others. They all heard the echo of Christ's words deep within themselves, the same words that echo within each of us. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. And with those words, Jesus is declaring what already is, not what we are to become. He is making a statement of fact. This doesn't mean that we must become something that we are not already. It means we are to become, live into, and manifest what we already are. And that is both the good news, but that's also a challenge. To believe and become what we already are. You wouldn't think it would be, but sometimes it's difficult to challenge the world to become what we are challenged to be. What we already are, if we will accept that challenge. It is some of the most difficult and most important work that we have to do. Several months ago, I attended a special Chrism Mass. And at the invitation in the Eucharist, the bishop would point to the gifts, the bread and the wine that would become the body and blood of Christ. And he said, behold what you are, and become what you see. Behold what you are, and become what you see. And I think that's what Jesus is saying in today's gospel. Behold the salt that you already are. Behold the light that you already are, and become that for the life of the world. And let others taste and see. Now, I can't tell any one of you how to do that. It will be unique to each of your lives. It will be particular and specific to your individual circumstances and the relationships that you have. And I don't know exactly what you will do, or where you will do it, or where you will sprinkle your salt, or where you will shine your light. But I know this. In whatever ways you do that, wherever you do that, or on whomever you do that, you have the power as children of God to reveal the embodiment of God and Christ in you, in humanity. God within you, God within us. We do that as a church at St. Mark's when we show the embodiment of Christ to the world. And in that moment, when you share that light and that salt, you too will taste life and see the world as you never have seen before. Let others taste and see, for you are the salt of the earth and the light of the world, today, now, and forevermore. And as God's people together we say, Amen. Congregation, please rise. And may the peace of God which passes all human understanding keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus our Lord.